So I recently posted something on Twitter. Sorry, X. It was gonna take me a while before I will start calling Twitter X. And what I posted was one of the greatest gifts of life is the gift of people and community. And for context, I wanted to share one of my most favorite passages of the Bible. And the reason I'm doing this is because there are so many profound lessons in that particular passage. Maybe some of us will be able to pick one or two lessons from that. And it's the book of Kings, Second Kings, chapter 4, verses 1 to 7. Every verse of those 7 verses have multiple profound lessons if you really pay attention to it. So I'm going to be speaking to some of the lessons that I've learned in that particular passage. So in this case, there was a woman who lost a spouse. And let me just read it a little bit. So I'm using the NKJV. A certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, "Your servant, my husband, is dead. And your servant feared the Lord, and the creditor is coming to take my 2 sons to be slaves." Now, that's the first verse. And there are about 4 lessons for me in that first verse. The first one is that this woman lost her spouse. And by losing her spouse, she became vulnerable and she had a lot of debt to pay. This was like an inherited debt. And I think the first lesson here is that as humans, we need to understand that life doesn't end at passing. So there are some steps or there are some decisions that you're going to make that will also impact people that you are leaving behind. So this guy took some loans and for some reasons he couldn't pay back and he passed. And the wife needed to pay the loan because the creditor, they were not going to let it go. They were not going to write off that debt. They needed their money. So the woman had to step in. She didn't have money, but she needed to pay back. So the second lesson from me is this: regardless of your position in the family, whether as a man or as a woman, I understand that we depend on each other to live our lives. But it's very important to design your life in a way that you won't be completely clueless if something goes wrong with your spouse or maybe your partner. At the very least, you want to have an idea of what's going on, what can go wrong, and how you can manage your life. So this woman, she didn't have anything, but she wanted to pay back the loan. And the third lesson for me is this. Third one is what I would call loyalty currency. There are some relationships that you build. Such relationships have potential to even keep benefiting you when you are long gone. So when this woman reached out for help, she had to mention the fact that my husband was loyal to you. He served the Lord. And what she was just trying to say is you can't just fold your arms and let this happen. So the prophet had to step in. Number 4 lesson in just this first space is that there are people around you who will really want to help you, but they won't be able to help you until you reach out for help. And that's very powerful because when this man passed, it wasn't that the prophet was oblivious of the death. The prophet knew that somebody had passed because he was working for the prophet. But somebody needed to remind him that there was more at stake. And this time around, we need your help. So when the prophet was ready to help, the prophet was like, okay, now, what shall I do for you? So the prophet is asking, what can I do? First of all, tell me what you have in the house. And this is another very powerful point. So the prophet knew that this woman needed more than just paying her bills. This woman has 2 kids. Even after paying her debt, she would still need money to continue living her life. So he knew that this woman needed empowerment, not just money. Then he asked her, what do you have in this house? To me, this is how I see it. This is the prophet asking, what is your strength? What are the potential that you have? And this is a very interesting one, because if you look at the response of the woman, said nothing apart from a jar of oil. And I think that jar of oil is to be consumed. The oil is to be consumed, so we don't have anything. And this is the most powerful part for me. I see this as there are times in life where you need to make some decisions and you already have what it takes to succeed, or what it takes to launch yourself into the next phase of your life. But because the strength that you carry, the potential that you carry, doesn't really hold so much weight to you, like you feel like everybody does it, because this is it. When you have some special talent or potential, you do not rate yourself because it comes to you naturally. So you don't see it as a big deal. I don't see it as anything that can maybe give you some advantages or money. Another thing is, most of the time, those strengths, potential, they're in a very crude form. And that's why you may not be able to identify the real value of those strengths. In this case, it was a jar of oil, and that oil wasn't going to do anything for this woman. But that was where the prophet had to step in. The prophet needed to refine that crude strength or scale it up for her. And the prophet said, go borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors. Let's scale up. Let's scale up this, your startup that you're about to launch. Even though that instruction did not make sense, but she did. She borrowed vessels. But this is where I want you guys to pay attention. I really need to pay attention to this part. Now, put yourself in the shoes of that woman. You want to borrow vessels from your neighbors. Chances are you're only going to go to the neighbors that you have existing relationships with. And why is that important? The power of community, the power of people. One of the greatest gifts in life is the gift of people, community. So when you isolate yourself, you live in a neighborhood and nobody knows you, and you need to knock on doors. Imagine you're in these shoes, you want to knock on doors to borrow vessels, and you're not speaking to anyone. You yourself won't be able to borrow as many vessels as you need, because you'll be shy or scared. But she borrowed her. We don't know how many vessels she got, but she got vessels. And the prophet said, keep pouring. She started pouring, and she filled all the vessels. But here's another powerful one. So at the point where she stopped pouring, the oil ceased. That's the currency of consistency. So she kept pouring and pouring until the point where she stopped pouring. At the point she stopped pouring, the oil stopped flowing. So some of you are going to start some businesses. You're going to launch a new idea, and you will need to keep pouring. You will need to keep pouring, and you have to keep pouring, because the moment you stop pouring, the oil will cease and it will stop flowing. Now, you don't know how long you will need to pour for, but you just have to keep at it. The interesting part, or the part I actually love most, is the part where the prophet told her to go sell the oil. Now, who do you think this woman sold a new product to? chances that she sold it to those people that she collected vessels from. So you see the power of community. She probably must have sold to them. We don't know, but I have a strong feeling that some of them would have been our clients or our customers. So I know it's a new year, and I'm sharing this just to encourage someone. I think I've mentioned about maybe almost 10 lessons in this particular passage, just 7 verses. Very powerful, very powerful. But this is what I want you to take away. There is so much power in having people around you. A lot of people want to help you, but 2 things usually happen. So either they don't know how they can help you, or they are waiting for you to reach out. So this is what I want to say to you. You have a lot of friends that will love to help you. When you find yourself in that situation that you need help, try to be vulnerable enough to ask for help. Just reach out for help. Ask for help. Tell them this is what you want to do. You will be shocked that everybody will come and say, oh, okay, yes, let's help you. Because most people are actually very kind. They just need you to let them know how they can help, and they'll be willing to help you. I'm going to end it with this quote by Steve Jobs. And the quote is, he says, I've never found anybody that didn't want to help me if I asked for help. And that's very powerful. So this year, do not do your life alone. Don't be isolated. Ask for help when you need one. Reach out to people. All the friendships and relationships you've built, because think about it, all the money you need in your life, they are scattered in people's hands. The money will only come from people, but the most sustainable and the easiest way to get money from people is by offering a service or services, is by having something to sell, is by being empowered by selling something. So you want to leverage those relationships. I'm not saying you should take advantage of people, but reach out for help. This year, do not do it alone. Don't isolate yourself. Don't feel bad about asking for help. There's so much power in vulnerability. Smart people ask for help. So this is my message to you. This is a very short one. I think it's the first time I'm doing this. So on this note, I just want to say thank you, and look out for more videos from me this year. And I'm excited about what the future holds. So cheers to an amazing 2025.